In this video, I want to take a look at Wonderware System Platform and why you might want to use it. In particular, you might hear it referred to as an industrial operating system, but what does that actually mean? By the end of this video, I'm hoping that you'll know the answer. My name is Dylan Pereira, and in this video, we're going to be talking about Wonderware System Platform, why it's referred to as an industrial OS, and give you a high-level overview of the software. But before we do that, I first need to talk about how we got here. If we go back in time and imagine it's the late 80s, things are good in the world. Pop music is fantastic, high school movies were awesome, and everyone was dressed really well. And if you had a problem, even if you thought no one else could help, as long as you could find them, there was the A-Team. Things were good, but if you had a home computer, things weren't as great as they are today. And you might be asking yourself, what you talking about? Well, let me explain. If I was using Microsoft DOS and I wanted to write a document, I might open up a program like WordPerfect. I'd type everything up, and just before it finished, I'd go in and configure my printer so that I could print it out on paper. Once I'd done this, I could print it out and everything was great. But maybe I had a friend who came over and he didn't own a printer. He handed me his floppy disk and I put it into my computer, but it turns out he was using Microsoft Word. Well, that's fine. In my case, we'll imagine I had both programs. So I'd open it up in Microsoft Word, and once again, before I could print it, I'd have to go in and configure my printer. That may not sound like much, but in those days, I had to configure my printer separately for each program. If I had a sound card, I'd have to set that up separately for each program. If I had a mouse, I'd have to go in and set that up separately for each program. It wasn't a huge issue because in our minds, this was just how computers were. But it's also why, for a very long time, computers weren't used by everyone. But things changed quite a bit when we got Windows. With Windows, the idea was to make things easier for users. Obviously, there were graphical benefits, but we also saw the idea of configuring core services. Software companies realized it was easier for users to configure something once and reuse those settings repeatedly. So in Windows now, if I want to set up a printer, I do it once, and all of my programs can utilize that configuration. Imagine how difficult life would be if you had to configure a Wi-Fi connection for each program specifically. Windows gives us those core services to make things easier. They then add on the Windows desktop experience as a layer for us to interact with the system. And then programs like Microsoft Word or Chrome lay on top as clients and allow me to now print out whatever I need using the single configuration that I set up. With System Platform, Wonderware realized that sure, Windows is great for the average user, but for our industrial users, we need more. So we start with the Windows framework because frankly, why reinvent the wheel? Instead, we just layer on top of it the core services that we need in our world. So, for an industrial OS, we already have basic networking that Windows gives us, but what about communications to our PLCs? We also need the ability to generate alarms and distribute those alarms. The ability to store our data historically. Ideally, we want to set up the configuration of this once and let it be used by all of our clients. And this is what System Platform does. It provides those additional core services so we configure them once and benefit from the simplicity it provides us later. Now, where Windows has the desktop, System Platform has the plant model. This is what we use as our entry point to access the data. And finally, we layer on top of that our clients, like InTouch or various reporting tools. Now, in the Windows world, when we want to set up those core services, we use Control Panel. In the System Platform world, it's very similar, but we use a pair of tools, the Orchestra IDE and the System Management Console. That leads us into the next discussion of what software actually composes System Platform. So if you remember the model on the left of what our industrial OS looks like, at our plant, we have different data sources that we might want to access. So the first piece of this is the operations integration layer, essentially the drivers that allow us to connect to those different data sources. From there, the first big tool is Application Server. This is really the heart of System Platform, and it integrates all of our various components together. This is where we'll do configuration and all of our setup. The second piece is the Wonderware Historian. This is a high-speed data capture tool that we'll use to collect and store our plant data. The nice thing about System Platform is that all of these pieces integrate together. And these three components make up what I was calling our core services or our service providers. From there, we can layer on the client tools. So a System Platform, that might be InTouch. For looking at reports, it might be things like Historian Client or the latest reporting tool that we have, which is Historian Insight. These tools together make up what we're calling System Platform. It's very similar to when you go into a restaurant and you order a combo. A burger is great on its own, a shake is great on its own, and fries are great on their own, but we join them together as a combo because together they work really nicely. System Platform is the same idea. Application Server and the Historian work really well together, and we have integration between the two, so you can do all of your configuration in Application Server and have it communicate that configuration over to the Historian. This gives us a centralized place to do our configuration, a centralized place for all of our data, and an easy centralized place for us to manage our plants from. My name is Dylan Pereira, and I hope this video gives you a good high-level understanding of what System Platform is. It's a combination of tools which integrate together to make managing your industrial process easier. If you have additional questions, please contact us here at InSource Solutions. We would love to hear from you.